Page 7, the Country Fiddler. The top of the page, they give you a hand position chart. I don't like those. I don't agree with them. They might be accurate. I don't care. If I want to know what the hand position is, I'm going to look at the music. I look at the first few notes in the music and the finger numbers provided, and that tells me the hand position to start, because hands can move around. So look at the first measure of this piece. The right hand, you got a 3 on the B. It's the only one given, so I'm in this position. They don't give me any other stuff, and the notes I'm seeing are all within this position, and that's the position. In the left hand, I've got this chord, so that's the position. I'm in a G position, because G is the bottom note. Happens to be the same as their chart, but I'm not using their chart. Okay. Underneath that box, there's another box showing different kinds of accents. I don't agree with this at all. No, it's different people are taught different things, and sometimes they conflict with each other. And I don't agree with this. That first one, they say is a loud accent. I totally disagree with that. I don't call that an accent at all. It is called a tenuto, and it means to stretch the note out. It means it's an important note. And because of that, some people will, and editors put them in to indicate play the note a little louder, but not a strong one. Even if it were an accent, it's not a loud accent. It's a tenuto. You play it, hang on to it as long as you possibly can. Now the rhythm doesn't let you hang on to it very long. You got to keep going. But they're important notes, so you hang on to. You see these. Look at the third line down, the first measure in the left hand. The B, those two. Play those. Don't cut them short. Is what this means. Hang on to them as much as possible, but to me, it doesn't mean to accent it. Other people disagree, and that's fine. The second one, to me, is an accent. This is, and there's no point in saying loud, louder, and loudest. It's an accent. Now, we do have different degrees of accents, but I wouldn't call it a louder accent. It's just an accent. An accent is louder than the regular note, period. It's just the way it works on piano. Now, keep in mind that a piano cannot do a true accent. The instrument just doesn't allow it, because an accent only applies to the attack or the beginning of the note. So it's like if I play a note and it suddenly it comes up to a certain volume and it stays there. When piano, when you hit it, it's higher and then it immediately decays away. Well, with an accent, the way it's supposed to work, you give a little extra at the beginning and then come down to where it would have been normally. So the accent only applies at the beginning of the note. Well, we can't do that with piano. All we can do is give it a little extra and then the piano just dies away. That's unfortunate, because a real accent done well, you go to a string player or a wind player or someone who can do an accent, and they're very effective, really. So that sideways arrow is just, to me, that's an accent. A little extra oomph. And then the bottom one where the arrow goes up, that's what we call a marcato. And that is a marked accent. That is a stronger accent. And usually, it depends on the interpretation. Some people will say, if it's an accent, even that sideways arrow, separate the notes a little bit. Other people say, no, that's not what it's intended. You go ahead and you just give it a little extra oomph, that's it. But with a marcato, you're more apt to separate the notes. A marcato is a and if you separate the notes a little bit, that helps to bring out the oomph, the extra oomph. It's an interpretive thing. I'm throwing a lot at you, but we'll cover it over and over and over as we go through these. Now take a look at the third line down. Let's go over these carefully. In the left hand, you have the tenuto marks, the line across the first two. To me, that just means hang on to them. Then you have the sideways arrows over the half note. That gives it a little extra oomph. Like so. And that's what they're using. Now, the third accent, the marcato one, the upper arrow, we're not using that in here. But if they did, it'd be even more oomph on that one. Those are really marked. Marcato, mark it. Play it. Play play it in a marked style, is what we're saying. Now, let's talk about the Country Fiddler a little bit, starting with the right hand. You have the eighth notes. Hopefully you know about counting eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, this is a 4/4 time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. If you don't, please go back to the previous book and learn about rhythm all over again, because it's important you know this. In the last measure of each line, there's dash lines. You see the dash lines? Going from here to the left hand, back to the right hand. That's telling you that's the melody. Melody's going down there and then going back up there. They have it written in red there, but I have a habit of just explaining it because we see it quite a bit. Now, it's not always a dash line. Sometimes it's a solid line. So it doesn't matter. It's just telling you where the melody goes. And it's nice of them because a lot of stuff doesn't tell you that. You don't get the lines. It's up to you to figure out where the melody is. But in this case, you wouldn't know because the melody very well could be a rest, you know. That could be the melody. So in this case, it's good they did that. So you know the left hand gets the melody for one note. Why is it important? Glad you asked. Because you bring out the melody. You play the melody louder than anything else. So the left hand is softer while the melody's playing. So when you get to the end of the line, that one note in the left hand's got to be as loud as the right hand. And that takes a little practice to coordinate that, because speaking of the left hand, let's talk about it. You're starting out with the chords, but it's the last measure of each line I want to talk about, because you have a rest and then you have melody note, bring it out, but then you have a chord again that's got to be soft. So the trick is, can you go from that loud note to a soft chord? That takes practice to control that. The tendency is to, you know, chords, you got more notes there, you want to play them a little louder. The chord's got to be softer because the melody's in the other hand. That's what they want to hear. So you may have to practice that. Don't have a lot in the left hand to say other than what we just said there. In the third and fourth lines, the left hand gets melody for the first two measures, the accents. And the right hand is soft then with a little staccato notes. I just do a nice little bounce thing. You want to use your wrist staccato, it's fine. I like to have fun with it. And sometimes I do a light arm staccato where I'm the hinging at the elbow and the whole arm is doing this. But the wrist stays loose. Never lock the wrist. It's got to stay loose. So as I'm coming down, the wrist is like a shock absorber. And I'm bouncing off the key. It's kind of fun. So you can experiment and see what you think. Dynamics. You do the dynamics. In the first line, it says forte, F for forte. That's the melody, it's going to be loud. You have to decide what loud is. What do you think loud is? It's not as loud as you can play, it's just loud. Because in the second line, it's telling you P for piano, which means soft. That's the melody is soft. Well, you got to get the left hand a lot softer than that. So the first line you're here, but in the second line you're here. Yeah, so you have to experiment. In the third line you're back to forte, that's the melody. It doesn't matter where the melody is. It is. So the first two measures of the last two lines, it's in the left hand. Plus they're accented or tenuto and all that. And then for the last two measures of the last two lines, the melody's in the right hand except for one note. So it's going back and forth. But it's forte either way. There's a box at the top. Says allegro means, and the dash lines, and you can go look it up right quick. Spoiler alert, I'm about to tell you. Allegro means fast. I don't exactly know what fast means, but allegro means fast. Because there's different degrees of fast. How fast? Well, how fast do you think it is? It depends on how you feel. Is here? To me, that's that's how it is. Now when you're first learning it, you're not going to go fast, you're going to go slow, and then you would gradually speed it up. And that's where metronomes come in handy, because you can set the metronome nice and slow, and then as you can play it accurately without any hesitations or nothing, then you can move the metronome up 1 to 4 steps. If your metronome goes up one number at a time like this one does, then you can do 1 to 4 steps at a time. But some metronomes, like this one, goes up in steps of 4. If you look at the numbers, they're not consecutive numbers. If you do that, you just move it up 1 step at a time on those kind of metronomes. Gradually speed it up until you get it to the speed you want. Takes time. So let's try this out slowly to check the notes and the rhythms. You do the dynamics and the accents and those things. I'm going to give us 4 counts since it's in 4/4 time. G position. 1, 2, and ready and go, and. 3, 4, off.